I still remember the sound of the church bells that morning. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The sky was clear, the air was crisp, and the whole town seemed to glow in the sunlight. I was 28, standing there in my best suit, heart racing with excitement and nerves. 12 years, that's how long I had loved her. 12 years of laughter, arguments, forgiveness, and promises. Her name was Emily. She was my world. I never doubted her. Not once. My friends, however, never liked her much. They said she was too distant, too secretive. They told me she didn't love me the way I loved her. But love makes you blind, and deaf too. When they told me they had hired a private investigator, I laughed in their faces. I told them they were crazy, jealous, or maybe just bored. I didn't know that they were about to save me from the biggest mistake of my life. The church was full that morning. Our families, our friends, our neighbors, everyone we knew. The music started playing softly as Emily walked down the aisle. She looked beautiful, like something out of a dream. My hands were shaking when she finally stood before me. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, everything felt right. The priest began speaking. I could barely hear him. My heart was pounding too loudly. Then he asked the question, the one everyone waits for. Does anyone here object to this union? The silence lasted for only a few seconds, but it felt eternal. Then I heard familiar voices from the back of the church. We do, one of them shouted. It was Jake, my best friend since childhood. Beside him stood Mark and Chris, looking dead serious. A murmur spread through the crowd like wildfire. My heart froze. Emily's smile vanished. The priest looked shocked. Jake stepped forward, holding something in his hand, a folder. Before you go through with this, man, he said, you need to see this. He handed it to me. I didn't understand what was happening. Inside were photos. Dozens of them, Emily, and another man, different places, different days. My stomach turned cold. The world around me went silent. I could see Emily's face pale, her lips trembling. I can explain, she whispered, but I couldn't hear her anymore. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. 12 years. 12 years of my life suddenly felt like a lie. I dropped the folder. The pictures scattered across the church floor like broken glass. People gasped. Emily burst into tears, trying to reach me. I took a step back, then another, and then I just walked out. Out of the church, out of that life, out of everything I thought I knew. The sun was still shining, but for me, the world had turned gray. I don't remember much of the rest of that day. Only fragments, Jake driving me home, me sitting in silence, staring at my ring. My phone buzzing nonstop, calls from Emily, from her parents, from mine. I didn't answer a single one. That night, I sat on my porch until morning, just staring at the sky. It is strange how you can feel so empty and yet so full of pain at the same time. I didn't eat for 3 days, didn't sleep either. Jake stayed with me, making sure I didn't do anything stupid. He never said, I told you so. He just sat there, silent, like a brother. When I finally spoke, all I could say was, why? Why would she do that? Why betray someone who loved her so deeply? There was no answer, of course, only silence. And that silence became my companion for the next few weeks. Everywhere I went, I saw her face. In the grocery store, in the park, even in my dreams. I hated her, but I also missed her. And that was the worst part. You can't turn off love like a light switch. I tried to distract myself with work. I'm a mechanic, been one since I was a teenager. The smell of oil and metal always calmed me down. But now, even that felt empty. Sometimes I'd look at the engagement ring still sitting on my dresser. I couldn't throw it away. It felt like throwing away a part of myself. So I just left it there, collecting dust. Weeks turned into months. Friends invited me out, but I always declined. The world felt too loud, too fast, too fake. Until one day, Jake convinced me to join him for a charity event downtown. It was a local fundraiser, nothing fancy, just music, food, and laughter. I went mostly because I didn't want to disappoint him again, and that's where I met her. Her name was Sarah. She wasn't dressed fancy or trying to impress anyone. She just had this calm, genuine smile that made me feel at peace. We talked for hours that night, not about love, not about pain, just life. And for the first time in a long while, I laughed. Really laughed. It didn't feel forced, it felt real. Sarah wasn't like anyone I had met before. She didn't ask personal questions, she didn't try to dig into my past. She just talked about the weather, her garden, her dog named Max, and somehow, those small, simple things felt like medicine. I remember thinking, maybe the world isn't all bad. She worked at the local library, said she liked the quiet there. I laughed and told her I liked quiet too, but for different reasons, we started meeting more often. Coffee on Saturdays, walks by the lake on Sundays. She had a soft way of speaking that made time slow down. I told her I wasn't ready for anything serious. She smiled and said, "That's okay. Neither am I." There was no pressure, no expectations. Just two broken people learning how to breathe again. Some nights I'd catch myself thinking about Emily, wondering if she ever regretted what she did. But those thoughts didn't hurt as much anymore. Pain fades slowly, like a bruise under sunlight. One evening, Sarah came by my place with a basket of food. "Dinner," she said with a grin. "And no, you don't get to argue." She cooked while I fixed her old car stereo. It was simple, quiet, and somehow perfect. When she laughed, the house felt alive again. I hadn't realized how lonely I'd been until then. After she left, I sat there for a while, smiling to myself. For the first time in months, I didn't feel broken. Just a healing. A few weeks later, I saw Emily again. It was at the grocery store, of all places. She froze when she saw me. Her eyes were red, tired. She looked smaller somehow. "Hi," she whispered. I just nodded. We stood there for a few seconds, surrounded by strangers and silence. Then she said, "I'm sorry," her voice cracked. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to scream, to ask why, to tell her how much she destroyed me. But instead, I just said, "I know," because I did know. She had made her choice, and I had made mine, to move on. As I walked away, I realized something. Forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about freeing yourself. That day, I finally felt free. Sarah and I kept growing closer. She told me she used to be married once too. Her husband died in a car accident 5 years earlier. There was pain in her eyes when she said it, and I understood it. Loss recognizes loss. That shared silence between us spoke louder than words. We didn't try to fix each other. We just existed, together. One evening, we sat on her porch watching the sunset. She asked, "Do you ever think love can come twice in a lifetime?" I smiled and said, "I didn't, not until now." She looked down, blushing. And in that moment, something inside me finally shifted. The fear, the doubt, the anger, it all melted away. I wasn't afraid to love again. Months passed, we took trips together. Nothing big, just small weekend getaways. We'd drive with no destination, windows down, music up. Sometimes we'd stop by old diners, laughing like kids. She had this way of making the world feel light again. Jake met her, and after dinner he pulled me aside. "She's good for you," he said. "You seem alive again." I smiled. "I feel alive again." On our 1-year anniversary, I took Sarah to the same lake where we first walked. The air was still, the water glowing under the moonlight. I told her how she helped me find myself again. She said I helped her believe in love again. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small box. Her eyes widened. "Not a ring," I said, smiling. "Just a promise." Inside was a silver pendant with both our initials. She cried, not out of sadness, but joy. That night, I realized that sometimes broken roads lead to the right destination. Love doesn't always come easy. Sometimes it finds you when you stop searching. And sometimes, it's softer, quieter, but real. Years later, I still think about that day at the church. If my friends hadn't stood up, if they hadn't risked our friendship to tell me the truth, I'd be living a lie. Instead, I found peace and gratitude. Because losing Emily taught me what love really means. Love isn't about perfection, it's about honesty, respect, and growth. And sometimes, about letting go. It's been 10 years since that day in the church. Sometimes, it feels like another lifetime. I still drive past that old building sometimes, just to remind myself how far I've come. The bells still ring on Sundays, but they don't echo in my chest the way they used to. I'm married now, yes, to Sarah. It wasn't a big wedding. Just a few close friends, a quiet garden, and a sunset that painted everything gold. Jake stood by my side as best man, smiling like a proud brother. When the priest asked if anyone objected, Jake whispered, "Not this time." We laughed. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid to say, "I do." Life with Sarah isn't perfect, but it's real. We argue sometimes, we disagree, we get tired. But at the end of every day, we choose each other again. That's what love really is, a choice, every single day. Some evenings, we sit by the fireplace and talk about our pasts. The things we've lost, the people we've forgiven. The versions of ourselves we had to bury to grow. She once told me, pain doesn't leave you, it teaches you, and she was right. If I hadn't gone through what I did, I wouldn't have learned what love truly means. Love isn't about butterflies or fireworks, it's about peace. It's about knowing that even on your worst day, you're still safe in someone's heart. I think a lot about forgiveness these days, how it doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to let the past poison your future. I forgave Emily, not because she deserved it, but because I deserved peace. And that peace gave me a second life. A few months ago, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name written in familiar handwriting. It was from Emily. Inside was a single page. She wrote that she was remarried, had 2 kids, and finally understood what she had lost. She thanked me for loving her once and for forgiving her later. I sat there for a long time, reading those words. Then I smiled and wished her well, because we were both different people now. And in a strange way, I was grateful for her. If she hadn't broken my heart, I never would have found Sarah. Life has a funny way of leading you where you're meant to go. It doesn't always make sense at the time, but when you look back, all the pieces fit together. Pain, loss, love, forgiveness, they all shape who you become. Sometimes, you have to lose the wrong person to appreciate the right one. Sarah and I recently bought a small piece of land just outside town. We built a tiny cabin by the lake. It's quiet there, peaceful, mornings smell like pine and coffee. Evenings sound like laughter and old music. Sometimes we dance in the kitchen for no reason at all. The world may think love belongs to the young, but that's not true. Love belongs to anyone brave enough to believe in it again. And I did. At 28, I thought my life was over. At 30, I realized it was just beginning. Now, at 40, I'm living proof that broken hearts can heal, and even bloom again. I still visit my old friends often. We sit on Jake's porch, drinking beer, and laughing about the old days. Every time, he says, "Man, I'll never forget that wedding." And I tell him, "Neither will I, because that's the day my real life started." He laughs, shakes his head, and says, "We only wanted to protect you." And I reply, "You did more than that. You gave me a future." Sometimes, I think about what I'd tell my younger self if I could. I'd say, don't be afraid to start over. Don't let betrayal define you. Your heart isn't ruined, it's just learning how to love better, because the truth is, broken things can still be beautiful. You just have to look at them differently. When I hold Sarah's hand now, I don't think about the past anymore. I think about how lucky I am that it all happened the way it did. Because love, real love, is born not from perfection, but from perseverance. And when you find someone who chooses you, even after the world broke you, hold on to them. They're rare, I know that now. Sometimes, on quiet nights, Sarah falls asleep beside me, and I just watch her breathe. And I whisper, thank you, not just to her, but to life itself, because I finally understand everything happens for a reason. Even heartbreak, even betrayal, they lead you to who you're meant to be. And if you're lucky, to who you're meant to love. So here's my story, not of loss, but of rebirth. Not of anger, but of gratitude. And if you're listening to this, maybe you need to hear it too. Whatever you've lost isn't the end. It might just be the beginning of something better.